objectives are to introduce user-centered design, go over design requirements for user interface, learn testing methods, and you guys will actually be prototyping your apps and testing them. So that should be pretty fun. So what is user-centered design? It is designing things with the user in mind. And I think an important thing to keep in mind, which Elle brought up in her talk as well, is that you are not the user. Sometimes you might be the user, but like as Elle was saying when she was testing packaging that had really small font, just because she could read it didn't mean that the user would be able to read it. So I think it's something really important to keep in mind is that you're testing and you're designing for the end user, which might not be yourself. There's a lot of empathy involved and a lot of research that needs to go into it. One way that a lot of user-centered designs are made is by following mental models. So when you come across a new object, not even software, but say it's a bottle, you have a certain expectation of how that will work because of your prior experience. So when you have a bottle, you kind of expect that it'll twist off, the cap will twist off. And when that goes against your expectation, you might not know how to open it. Is it pull? There's actually these water bottles here at work in the cafeterias that are this weird flip open and then kind of turn it upside down. And they always joke that whenever you just start and it's your first time eating lunch there, they're like, yeah, we usually use that as an interview question, trying to open the bottle, because it always takes everyone 3 minutes to do it. But sometimes, so what if you have never seen something before and it's not a bottle, it doesn't look like a bottle? One thing that designers use is mental models, which is based off analogy. So one example of this is computers. So computers, especially when they were first introduced to just regular consumers, not a lot of people had experiences with them. And one of the ways that the interface was designed was to actually be modeled after your physical desktop. So, on your computer you have a desktop and it has folders, and you know that little Word documents can go in the folders because in real life you can put, pieces of paper into folders. How would you open these doors? Okay, how many of you guys say pull? And then how many of you guys think push? No. Okay. So, I'm not sure because I didn't take this picture, but it does say push if you look really carefully on there. Usually when there's a pull handle, you pull it. Not a pull handle, but a handle that you can grab onto and physically pull. But so because you guys were both, the class was so split, this is sort of an example of bad design because you want it to be really intuitive how the thing works. You don't want it to be confusing in any way. You just want it to be natural. You don't want the user to even have to think about it. It's a door. It shouldn't need instructions, right? That's a little bit too much. If you need instructions, you should probably adjust the design to just make it more intuitive. So when you look at it, you know what to do. Something interesting about that when I was in school and learning about design, it's something that really stuck with me is one of my professors was saying that, if you think about anything that's ever been designed, every design decision was a decision made by someone. So, if you take this chair, it's someone decided to make it on wheels, someone decided to make it green, someone decided what material. Every single step of the way, someone actually had to make a choice about it. And when you're using user-centered design, you really want to make sure that your choices are for your end user. So, wheels might not be always the best choice. It depends what the chair is being used for and what it's going to be used, and who it's going to be used by. So that's something really important to keep in mind when you guys are doing your apps and prototyping your apps is really every single thing that you're deciding, you should have your user in mind and be thinking, why am I choosing this color? Why am I choosing this font? Why do we want more buttons or less buttons? What are the benefits and the cons of everything that you're deciding? So here's the picture of remote control. How would you turn on the TV with this remote control? Which one? It's kind of hard to tell. I would guess. Top right. Yeah, kind of looks like top right. Not totally obvious. And what do you guys think, like, you know, some of like what does this green button do you think? Forward? What? Record? See, so it's really not like exactly intuitive how to use this remote control. I know like my TV at home in New Jersey, my mom like has no idea how to use the remote control and just like actually only goes to the TV and physically presses the one power button. She like refuses to use the remote control. But so here's another design of a remote control, and it's also pretty intuitive like what the buttons do. So you know the center button there in the middle of the top circle. Can you guys tell what that does? Yeah. And then the plus, what would you guys guess that did? Yeah, so it's just a lot more clear. Well, I mean, I guess the picture is a little bit better on this one, but it is a lot more intuitive and clear what the use is for. And that is something that makes up a really good user design. Again, if your user maybe had wanted a remote control that could control more things, or they could have more functionality out of the remote control, maybe this wouldn't be the better choice. So it's always thinking about what design decisions you're making for your user and what they want to use out of it. A little bit of vocabulary, I guess. An interface, I'm sure you guys have all heard that word. It's a common boundary or link between two things. So it can really describe anything, not just in software. It's kind of how you interact with something. So, you know, in the case of the door example, like the door would be the interface. User interface is interface between a person and a thing. And that is usually used in software. So that's talking about, you know, your computer screen or your mobile screen. And user interface design, pretty straightforward, designing things for the people who use them. So how to design interfaces. This is similar to the cycle that we went over, I think it was now 2 lessons ago. But so you first want to define the requirements. What is your user going to use, you know, in your guys' case, what are they going to use the app for? And then you want to do research and see, okay, are the users that you've identified really, is that what they need to do with the app? Is that what they're going to do with the app, and is that solving their problem? Then we go ahead and we design prototypes, like Elle was speaking about. We'll make paper prototypes or really anything that's very bare minimum. This goes back to the lean thinking model that we talked about, I think, again, 2 weeks ago, where you just want to get the point across. So you want something that people can test and you can actually get results from, but you don't want to invest too much into it because it's all about iteration. And so that's where the testing comes in. After you design a prototype, you have user testing, and you see, okay, are users actually interacting with your prototypes the way that you intended it to? And usually you find that, especially the first time around, they aren't. They, you know, are doing all sorts of things that you hadn't anticipated. And then that's when you go back to the drawing board and you kind of refine your prototypes and go back into the testing phase. So we'll be doing this today. I am going to show you this video. It's an example of a paper prototype to give you guys an idea of what a prototype for a mobile app looks like. And when you guys make it, it doesn't have to be, you know, as, I guess, developed as this, but this is still pretty bare minimum. It was similar to what Elle was talking about, where she said that she, you know, the other week had been taping kind of a bird's eye view and, you know, pulling Post-it notes on and off the phone. So basically, when you guys are doing your paper prototypes, you want to consider all the different possible like paths that a user can go down. So, you know, if they click on this link, where do they go? If they click on this one, where do you go? Or what happens when you know, like in this one, you rate something, what screen does that look like? So you really want to kind of draw out and test all the different possibilities. We're going to do a few activities. First, we're going to do some research, and then we're going to actually create your prototypes, and then we'll have you guys test, pair up with another team, and you can test each other's prototypes and see where you need to iterate. So for the first part, the research, what I want you guys to do is to investigate apps that are similar to the ones that you guys have. So you can, if you've already kind of looked into competitor research or when you were thinking of ideas, if you saw similar apps, that might be a good place to start. And so once you find some apps that are similar, make notes about kind of how their interface works and what you think it does well, what you think it could do better, or if it's not exactly the same as your app, maybe you can take ideas, design ideas from there, or kind of see where some of their ideas aren't really working as well. After that, you guys can actually go into creating your paper prototypes using the note cards that are there. And if you have any questions, let me know. And then from there, we'll have you guys match up with another team and actually go ahead and test the prototypes that you've made. By next week, you should really have all of these done. So hopefully you've completed customer development and at least started building your paper prototypes. And then once you complete your prototypes, you want to identify some of your users and actually have them test your prototypes and see kind of what are the weaknesses and strengths of it and iterate on that. Okay, thanks guys. Good job today.